The wind blew hard across the alien plains as dark clouds gathered above. Eli Graves stood at the edge of his small outpost. Staring at the sky, he had seen many storms before. But tonight, something felt different. The air was heavy, the silence deeper than usual. Somewhere out there, something was waiting. Eli was a human engineer living far from Earth, sent to this planet called Eloria to help maintain peace and technology between species. The village nearby was home to the Thaleen, tall and thin aliens with glowing blue skin and deep black eyes. They didn't trust humans, not fully. They stayed quiet around Eli, only speaking when needed, but he didn't mind. He came here to do his job, fix machines, and maybe fix a little more than that. As the first drops of rain hit the metal roof, Eli heard something strange. It was a soft sound, not the howl of wind, not the clatter of machines. It was crying, low and broken. He paused. Listening again, there it was, a child's cry. Weak and filled with pain, grabbing a raincoat and flashlight. Eli stepped into the storm. He followed the sound past the outpost walls, through wet grass and mud, then, just beyond the fence, he saw something small curled up near a rock. It was a child, a Thaleen child, soaked. Shaking and bleeding, one of its arms was missing. Torn or broken beyond healing, Eli's breath caught in his throat. The child looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. It didn't speak, but its body trembled with fear and cold. He knew the villagers wouldn't come for it. They were afraid of mixing with humans. And afraid of weakness, this child had no one. "I've got you," Eli said gently, ignoring the rain pouring down his back. He picked the child up carefully and carried it to his workshop. Its skin was ice cold, its breathing weak. Every step felt heavy, not because of the weight, but because of what might come next, inside. He placed the child on a soft blanket and lit a fire. He cleaned the wound, did what he could with his med kit. But the limb was gone. Nothing could bring it back. Not unless he built something new. He looked around the room. Metal parts lay everywhere, scrap, old tools, failed prototypes. Then his eyes settled on a half-finished robotic arm he had been playing with last week. Could it work for the child? It wasn't designed for Thaleen biology, but maybe, just maybe, he could adapt it. He started working, slowly, carefully, scanning the child's body with a handheld device. Trying to understand its nerve patterns, he connected wires, adjusted joints, and used soft material to protect the child's skin. The rain outside turned into thunder. But he kept working, hands steady even as fear crept in. What if the village elders found out? What if the child's family blamed him? What if the queen, the ruler of the Thaleen, saw this as a violation of their laws? But Eli pushed those thoughts aside. The child needed help now. And that was all that mattered as the night deepened. The child opened its eyes again. This time, there was less fear. Eli gave it a small drink of warm water. And for the first time, the child whispered, "Why? Help me." Eli paused, then smiled. Because no one else would. That answer seemed to calm the child, who closed its eyes again, drifting into sleep. Eli sat beside it, his heart heavy and hopeful at the same time. He wasn't sure what he had started, but he knew it was important. Suddenly, he heard a rustle outside. He looked up sharply. Through the window in the trees, a shadow moved. It was tall, still, and watching, Eli couldn't see the face. But he felt it. Someone was there. Someone had seen what he did. He stood, walked to the door, opened it slowly, but found nothing. Only the wind and the dark trees, still and silent. But the feeling didn't go away. He was being watched, and whatever or whoever it was, they knew. Back inside, the fire cracked softly. The child slept peacefully, one arm gone. The other, a new one, almost ready. Eli sat back down, eyes on the door. He had done a good thing. But good things often bring trouble. Outside, high above the clouds, something moved, a ship, silent and hidden. It had no lights, no sound, but it was there. The Queen had received a signal, and she was coming. The morning came, slow and quiet. A soft fog covered the village, and the storm had left behind pools of muddy water and broken branches. Inside the workshop, Eli sat beside the sleeping alien child. His eyes were red from working all night, but he didn't stop, not yet. The robotic limb was nearly done. It was small, lightweight, and made with soft parts to match the alien child's smooth skin. Eli checked the sensors again, then connected a tiny power core. The limb gave off a soft hum, and its fingers twitched for the first time. The child stirred awake. Blinking slowly, for a moment, it seemed confused. Then it looked down and saw the new arm. Eli smiled gently. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it's yours now." The child reached out. The fingers moved slowly, not fully steady yet. But the connection was there. The nerves had accepted the link. The metal limb was working, not just as a machine, but as part of the child's body. A tear rolled down the child's cheek. It didn't say anything, just nodded, softly, gratefully. Eli stood and walked to the workbench. He knew this was just the beginning. The arm would need upgrades, maintenance, improvements, but right now, the most important part was trust, and he had earned a little of it. Suddenly, the door slammed open. Eli turned fast, heart jumping. 3 alien villagers stood there. One of them was the elder, named Varric, tall and sharp-eyed. He had always watched Eli with caution. "You broke the law," Varric said coldly. "You touched a child that was marked by the Queen's scouts." Eli frowned. He was dying. No one came to help him. "That is not your place." "Human," Varric growled. "He was marked unfit to survive." "You changed that?" The other villagers looked nervous. One even seemed afraid, but Eli stood firm. "Then maybe your laws need changing," he said quietly. The room fell silent. The child hid behind Eli's leg, clutching the edge of his coat with the new metal fingers. That single movement said everything. The bond was real now. Varric looked at the arm, studying the design. There was surprise in his eyes, even respect, but his voice stayed cold. "You think this gift will go unnoticed?" "The Queen sees everything. I don't care if she sees," Eli said. "Let her come. I'll explain." "Be careful what you wish," Varric replied. Then left with the others, leaving the door half open behind them. Eli closed it slowly, his hands shaking just a little. The Queen, until now, she had been just a name, a shadow above. No one had seen her in person. Not in this village, but if she was coming, he needed to be ready. He returned to the table and began adjusting the limb. Adding a new safety lock, the child sat nearby, now calm, watching him work, in the silence. Something beautiful had formed between them. Trust, hope, maybe even friendship, as the day passed. Eli received a message on his old radio unit. It crackled and buzzed before a voice came through. It was a warning. From a human orbit station, Eli Graves. "Your activity has triggered a high-level scan. You may have violated diplomatic boundaries. Prepare for possible extraction." He turned the device off without replying. He had no time for politics. Not now, not when a life had just been saved. Later that evening, the child spoke again. "My name is Kale." Eli smiled. "Nice to meet you." Kale looked at his new arm, then back at Eli. "Do humans always fix what is broken?" Eli laughed softly. "Not always. But we try." That night, as stars appeared in the sky, Eli took Kale outside for fresh air. The other villagers kept their distance, whispering behind trees and doors. But one small girl waved at Kale. Kale waved back, his metal hand shining under the moonlight. Just as they turned to go back inside, a loud humming filled the air. Eli looked up, and his heart stopped. A large ship, dark and silent, floated down through the clouds. It had no lights, no sound, but its presence was heavy. Royal markings glowed along its side. Kale froze, whispering. The Queen, the ship didn't land. Not yet. It hovered above the trees like a silent storm. Then, a single beam of golden light came down and scanned the village, stopping right at Eli's outpost. Inside, machines flickered, lights dimmed. Something inside the ship was trying to connect. Eli rushed to protect his workshop systems. But the beam wasn't attacking, it was observing. Kale grabbed Eli's hand. "She's watching us." Eli looked up at the beam. Then at the child. He didn't know what the Queen wanted, or if she came in peace, but he knew one thing: he had crossed a line. And now, nothing would be the same again. The village was quiet the next morning, but not peaceful. Everyone had seen the ship in the sky. Everyone had felt its power. The Queen's ship had not landed, but it had spoken without words. A warning, a message, or maybe a test inside the workshop. Eli was back at his workbench. His hands moved fast, tightening screws, adjusting wires, checking the data coming from Kale's new limb. The scans showed something incredible. The robotic arm wasn't just working, it was syncing with Kale's nervous system faster than expected. Kale stood nearby, flexing his fingers. The metal responded like it had always been part of him. No hesitation, no delay, just movement. Smooth and natural. "How does it feel?" Eli asked, not looking up. Kale smiled, like it was always mine. Eli finally stopped and looked at the child, amazed. "You're adapting faster than I thought." Kale nodded proudly, then lifted a small tool off the table with his new hand. "A T listens to me," he said. "It understands outside." A group of villagers had gathered again. They didn't come close, but they watched with wide eyes. Some looked afraid, others amazed. A few whispered among themselves, pointing at the limb. Eli knew what they were thinking. This was not normal. Not just science. This was something more than something unexpected happened. An older alien, one of the silent ones, stepped forward and bowed deeply to Kale. He spoke a single word. "Chosen." Kale looked confused. "What does that mean?" Eli answered quietly. "It means they think you're special now." Kale tilted his head, unsure how to feel. But his eyes were glowing with something new confidence. As the crowd slowly faded, Eli took Kale back inside. He was about to start another scan when his radio beeped again. Another message from the human orbit station. This time, it wasn't a warning, it was an order. "Eli Graves, you are hereby instructed to halt all engineering activities involving alien biological systems. Your actions have been flagged for protocol breach." Extraction team en route. Eli turned it off again. His jaw tightened. "They're scared," he muttered. "They see something working, and instead of learning, they panic." Kale watched him. "Are you in trouble?" "Yes," Eli replied. "But I don't care. Not if it means helping you." Just then, the lights flickered again. The air around the room grew warm, and a deep hum returned. The Queen's ship was above them once more. This time it was lower, closer, more focused. Kale walked to the door and looked up. The ship hovered above like a giant eye. Watching, waiting, Eli joined him. "She's not just watching now," he said. "She's deciding." Suddenly, the beam of golden light returned, but this time it was different. It didn't scan the building. It scanned Kale, slow and careful. Then shifted to the robotic arm. The light grew brighter, and the limb responded. The fingers moved. The joints pulsed, as if the ship was communicating directly with the device. Eli stepped forward, protective. "What are you doing?" He shouted to the sky. "He's just a kid." The beam vanished. The ship rose higher, then slowly drifted back into the clouds without a sound. No reply, no sign of attack. But a message had been sent. They had taken notice. Later that night, Kale sat quietly on the workbench. He looked at his arm, then at Eli. "Do you think she will come?" Eli nodded slowly. "She will? Will she hurt you?" Eli paused, then smiled gently. "Maybe, but I'd do it all again." Kale looked down, gripping his robotic hand tightly. "No one has ever helped me like this," he said. "Not even my own people. You're not just any child." Eli said, "You're the first to carry something human and something alien." Together, a strange sound echoed in the distance. Low and deep, like a voice from the earth itself. Kale looked up. "She's closer now." Eli didn't reply. He walked to the control panel and closed the outer locks. He didn't know what would happen next. But he knew something had changed forever, not just in Kale, but in the entire world around them, as he turned off the lights. The robotic arm glowed softly in the dark. The lines of energy running through it pulsed like veins, alive not just with power, but with purpose. Eli sat beside Kale as the stars returned overhead. The village stayed quiet, but the silence felt heavy, like a breath being held before a storm. Tomorrow, everything could change again. But tonight, a child had found his strength. And a human had made a difference, and far above, the queen had seen it all. Asterisk, the sky turned gold just before sunrise, not with light, but with energy. A low vibration filled the air, so deep it could be felt in the bones. The village stood still, silent and afraid. No one moved, no one spoke. Everyone knew she was here. Eli stood outside his workshop, eyes fixed on the sky. Beside him stood Kale, the alien child, now calm but alert. The new robotic limb on his arm pulsed gently. Alive with faint light, it was responding to something above. Something powerful. Then they saw it. A massive ship broke through the clouds. Shaped like a smooth black stone, glowing with golden lines that danced across its surface. It moved slowly. Not like a machine, but like a living being, breathing, watching, thinking. Villagers dropped to their knees. Some whispered prayers. Others covered their faces in fear. Even the elders who had once shouted at Eli now bowed their heads, trembling. But Eli did not kneel. He stood tall, eyes sharp, heart steady. "She's not a god." He whispered to Kale, "She's a leader, like us." The ship came lower and lower, until the trees bent from the force. Then it stopped, hovering just above the ground. A single ramp opened at the front, and a figure stepped out. She was taller than any Thaleen Eli had seen before. Her skin was dark blue, almost violet, and her robe shimmered like water under moonlight. A golden crown floated above her head, not touching, just hovering as if held by pure thought. Her eyes were strange, deep, glowing, full of age and sorrow. She didn't walk fast. Every step was slow and heavy. Like the ground itself moved beneath her feet. She said nothing, not a word, not a sound, but as she came closer, the crowd parted. Some wept, others looked away. Only Kale and Eli stood in her path. The queen stopped a few feet away. Her eyes moved to Kale, resting on his robotic limb. Then she looked at Eli, long and cold. Not angry, just unreadable, like she was deciding what he was. Kale stepped forward, raising his new arm. "This," he said, his voice strong. "He gave this to me. He saved me." The queen said nothing for a long time. Then, finally, she spoke. Her voice was not loud, but it echoed in the air like music and thunder mixed together. "You broke the rule," she said to Eli, "and yet, you did not run." Eli nodded. "I don't run from what's right." She walked in a circle around him, slowly studying his face, his hands, his tools. "Your kind once came to destroy. Then you came to control, and now you come to help." "I came to help one child," Eli replied. "That was enough." The queen looked at Kale again. "Why did you let him touch you?" Kale's voice shook. But he answered, "Because he looked at me like I mattered." That answer made something flicker in the queen's eyes. Not anger, not pain, something older, something hidden. She raised her hand, and Kale's robotic arm floated upward without him moving it. It lifted by itself, guided by invisible force. The fingers opened, spread wide, then closed into a fist. The queen was testing it. No, testing Eli. Eli took a step forward. "If you harm him," but she waved her hand gently, and the limbs settled back to normal. Kale breathed again, and the tension broke for a moment. "You created something," the queen said. "Not just a tool, but a bond." Eli nodded once. "That's what makes us human." The queen looked to the crowd, then back at Eli. "Come with me," she said, and turned without waiting. Eli blinked. "Where?" "To speak," she said. "To decide." Kale grabbed his coat. "I'm coming too." The queen looked at the boy, and for the first time, she smiled, just a little. "No," she said gently. "Not yet." Eli hesitated, then followed her up the ramp. The villagers watched in silence as the ship closed behind them. The golden lines along its surface shimmered, then pulsed, and the craft lifted into the air without sound. Disappearing into the clouds once again, Kale stood alone in front of the workshop. The village behind him whispered, but he didn't hear them. His eyes were on the sky. Where the queen had taken his friend, inside the ship, Eli sat in silence. Surrounded by strange lights and soft humming walls, the queen sat across from him. Watching, waiting, finally, she spoke. "Tell me why. Tell me everything." And so, Eli began. Inside the queen's ship, the walls pulsed like a heartbeat. Soft light flowing through them like veins. Eli sat in a chair that grew from the floor itself. It was warm to the touch, like living skin. Across from him sat the queen, her hands folded. Her glowing eyes locked onto his face. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence inside the ship was deep, like space itself. Then finally, the queen broke it. "You are not like the others," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "The humans I knew took more than they gave." Eli met her gaze. "Maybe they did, but I'm not them." The queen tilted her head slightly. "Why did you help the child?" Eli didn't blink, because he needed help. "That should be enough." She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "You knew it was forbidden." The boy was marked as unfit. He was meant to be forgotten. "That's not a rule," Eli replied. "That's a sentence." The queen stood and began to walk slowly around him, her long robe trailing behind like mist. "We have survived for thousands of cycles because we follow order, not emotion," she said. "You break that order with one act of kindness. And now the whole village speaks your name. I didn't come here to be remembered, Eli said. I came to help build peace, and sometimes peace starts with one good choice. The queen stopped walking. She turned and raised her hand. A beam of light appeared in the air between them. It showed an image, a human soldier. Then a burning village. Then another image, machines, tearing into alien forests. Then another, a child like Kale. Lying broken in a human lab, Eli's face tightened. I know what we've done, but I didn't do that. I don't want that. Words are easy, the queen said. But pain lives long in memory. The image has vanished, replaced by one final picture. A small alien girl, blue-skinned like Kale. Crying behind a glass wall, Eli leaned forward. Who is that? The queen's voice softened, just a little. My daughter Eli looked at her, surprised. What happened? She was taken by humans, the queen whispered. Promised safety, she died in their care. Alone, a long silence followed. The air inside the ship grew cold. Eli didn't know what to say. Nothing would erase that pain. Nothing could. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I can't fix the past. But I can change now. The queen looked at him with unreadable eyes. You saved Kale, she said. You gave him something even we could not. I gave him a chance, Eli replied. That's all. She sat back down, her shoulders lower now, less stiff. The limb you created is not just metal. It holds something strange, your energy, your memory, something that connects with him beyond science. Eli nodded. We call it intention. You build something with care. It carries meaning. The queen touched her chest, just above her heart. Then what is your intention now? Eli took a deep breath. To stay, to teach, to build more limbs if needed, to show your people we can do better. The queen looked into his eyes. Searching, she stayed quiet for several moments. Then slowly nodded. You speak with honesty. That is rare. Just then, a soft chime echoed through the room. A young alien attendant entered, whispered something into the queen's ear. Her eyes changed, darkened, and she stood quickly. What is it? Eli asked, standing as well. She looked at him with concern. Your own people have sent a message to orbit, she said. They are coming. Not to help you, to remove you. Eli felt a chill run through his spine. So they've made their choice. They fear what you've done, the queen said. But I do not. Eli looked at her carefully. Then what will you do? She paused, then spoke clearly. You are now under my protection. What does that mean? Eli asked. It means, she said, that anyone who harms you, harms me. The floor beneath him shifted, and the walls lit up like sunrise. The ship began to turn, preparing to descend back to the village. Eli looked out the window and saw small human shuttles entering the atmosphere in the distance. Warships, not rescue ships. Kale waited in the village below, his new arm glowing faintly in the early light. He looked up at the sky, feeling the change in the air. The queen turned to Eli one last time. You gave my people something new. Now I will give you something in return. What's that? He asked. A voice, she said, and a place among us. The ship moved faster now. The future was approaching, not slowly, but at full speed. The queen's ship landed quietly. But the village was already awake. Everyone had seen the sky turn red as the human shuttles entered orbit. Soldiers from Earth were coming, and no one knew what they would do. Kale stood at the center of the village, his eyes on the sky. His robotic arm glowed brighter than before. Reacting to something unseen, the other children looked at him with awe. Some were scared, but many were curious for the first time. Kale did not feel small. He felt strong. The ship's ramp lowered, and Eli stepped out beside the queen. The villagers bowed again, but this time, their eyes were on him. Not with fear. With respect, Eli walked to Kale and placed a hand on his shoulder. "They're coming," he said. "But we won't run." Kale nodded. "Not this time." The queen raised her voice so all could hear. "The human named Eli Graves has shown us something rare," she said. "Compassion without command, creation without control." She stepped forward, holding a small glowing crystal in her hand. "This is the core of memory," she explained. "It holds the story of this moment. It will be shared with every elder, every city, every planet in our reach." She gave the crystal to Eli. He took it carefully, feeling its warmth. "You are giving me your history?" He asked. "No," she replied. "We are giving you a future." A deep hum echoed across the sky. One of the human ships entered the atmosphere, sleek and dark, its engines glowing. It circled once, scanning the village, then hovered in place, waiting. A voice came through Eli's old radio. "This is Earth's Fleet Command. You are to leave the surface immediately. Return with the prototype and the alien subject for review." Eli picked up the radio slowly. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, "and neither is Kale." "This is not a request," the voice replied. "Colder now. Your actions have breached interspecies protocol. Surrender now or be removed." The queen stepped beside him and pressed her fingers to a golden panel. A beam of light shot from her ship into the sky, striking the warship above. Not as a weapon, as a signal, a symbol. Within seconds, 6 more Thaleen ships decloaked from the clouds, surrounding the human vessel without firing a single shot. It was a wall of silence, power without violence. Eli looked up, then back at the radio. "Looks like I'm not alone." There was no response. Only static. Then, slowly, the Earth ship turned and began to rise, fading into the clouds. No fight, no words, just retreat. The village let out a breath they didn't know they were holding. Kale smiled wide, then ran forward and hugged Eli tightly. His metal arm wrapped around the human without fear. Without shame, the queen walked into the center of the crowd. "Let this be known," she said, "that trust was returned with trust. And that peace was protected without war." She turned to Eli again. "You said you wanted to help more, teach more." He nodded. "I do." "Then you will," she said. "We will open the vaults. You will be allowed to study our biology, our tech. And you will train others to do what you did, not to copy, but to care." Eli felt the weight of her words. He wasn't just a mechanic now. He was a bridge between two worlds. Villagers began to gather tools, scrap, and old tech. Children lined up to touch Kale's arm. Asking questions, Kale answered proudly, showing how it worked, how it moved, how it helped him feel whole again as the sun rose higher. A small classroom was built near the workshop. Not from bricks, but from effort and unity. Humans who had stayed in orbit now sent peaceful signals, asking for dialogue, not control. The queen sat under the shade of a large glowing tree, watching her people learn. Her eyes were softer now, her heart less heavy. She looked at Eli one more time. "You gave a limb to one child. But the real gift was what came with it." "What was that?" he asked. "Hope," she said. "Hope that we are not alone in kindness. That not all humans are blind to pain." Eli smiled. "I told you. I just did what was right." The queen nodded. "Sometimes. That is all it takes to change everything." And far above them, the stars watched in silence. As two species began to write a new chapter, not with weapons, but with hands outstretched. One of flesh and one of metal, both human at heart. Weeks passed, and the village no longer looked the same. Where once there was silence, now there was learning. Where there was fear, now there was laughter. Eli's workshop had turned into a small training center, not just for building, but for understanding Kale. Once the quiet, injured child had become a symbol. He walked proudly with his robotic limb, not hiding it, but showing it, teaching others how to use it, fix it, and even improve it. The children followed him like a leader, and the adults listened when he spoke. Eli stood beside him most days, guiding students, showing new designs, blending human tools with alien materials. He was no longer just an outsider. He had become part of them. The Queen visited often, sometimes with guards, sometimes alone, but she always came with questions and left with more hope. Her people, once rigid and bound by law, were now slowly opening to change. But above the clouds, all was not quiet. Far beyond the orbit of Aloria, a dark ship floated in the shadow of a dead moon. It had no name, no signal, and no purpose but one observation. Inside, cold voices spoke, not with mouths, but through thought and code. The human has shifted the balance. The Queen now protects him. That planet must not rise beyond control. The ship sent a signal, one too quiet to detect a pulse through the stars. A message to others back on Aloria. Eli stood by the tree where he first met Kale's people. The leaves above shimmered with soft energy, glowing like lanterns. Kale joined him, now taller, stronger, and more confident. "Do you think it will last?" Kale asked. "This peace." Eli looked at the sky, then back at the village. "I hope so," he said, "but peace is not a gift. It's something we build every day." Kale nodded, his robotic fingers flexing. "Then I'll help build it." That night, a celebration lit the village. Lanterns floated in the air. Music echoed through the trees, and the first full moon in weeks rose high above. The Queen stood beside Eli as her people danced. "We once feared you," she said softly. "Now we trust you." Eli smiled. "Trust is better than fear." She looked at the stars, her voice growing colder. "But fear may still come." He followed her gaze. "What do you see?" "A shadow," she said. "One we've seen before." Eli's expression hardened. "Then we'll face it together." Suddenly, a device in Eli's coat beeped a message. He pulled it out and read the screen. His face went pale. "What is it?" The Queen asked sharply. "It's from Earth," Eli said. "My command." "They want me back after all this time?" She asked. "They say they want peace talks," he replied, "but they're sending a fleet." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Do you trust them?" "I trust some of them," he said, "but not all." The next day, ships appeared in the sky again, but not 1, 12. They didn't fire, didn't threaten, but their presence was loud, heavy. A reminder of what still existed out there: fear, control, suspicion. One ship sent a message: "We come in peace. We request a meeting." The Queen turned to Eli. "You will speak for us." "Me?" he asked, surprised. "You know both sides," she said. "You speak human and you act the lean," he smiled. "I'll try." Inside the meeting chamber, Earth officials sat across from alien elders. Eli stood in the middle, explaining what had happened, what they had built, what they had changed. There was tension, but also curiosity. One commander said, "If one man can do this much, maybe we were wrong," another said. "Or maybe he's the exception." Eli looked at them all. "Then let me help others become the exception too." When the talks ended, nothing was final, but everything had shifted. Earth would not attack, not yet, but they would watch. Test. Question. Back in the village, Eli sat with Kale under the glowing tree. They don't understand yet, he said. But they will. Cale looked up. What if they come to break this? Eli looked at his hand, then Cale's, metal and skin, side by side. Then we remind them what it means to build, not break. The stars above twinkled. But some twinkled less shadows among light. The future was unknown, but it was theirs to shape. One child had been saved, one limb had been built. One heart had chosen hope, and now a galaxy watched as one human and one alien stood together, ready for whatever came next.